Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
Getting down here in Cottonwood Bayou, all the way down to Panther Point Lake, Swan Lake, Panther Point, all these areas up and down here. We've talked about these in the past on different occasions. Here lately, this shoreline here, starting up there from Cottonwood, even all the way back to Ayers Point in certain areas, get back on these shorelines here. That's hard packed sand. You've got some scattered grass, tremendous amount of bait. Watch out for all the crab traps that are out that way. But anyway, all this area here has been producing some decent trout, a lot of undersized trout. The reefs are starting to show fish getting on them. It's not on a consistent basis just yet, at least not for me. It hasn't been anyway. But we are locating some trout scattered out over some of these reefs. I haven't fished out on Panther Reef, out on parts of it, but mostly the points, the shorelines, the edges, inside the lake. Still lots of fish over the grass potholes, grass flats, grass back lakes. Lots of fish still there, both reds and trout. Now, the one thing that's been pretty consistent, we've got the big moon that's in place as we are speaking. So that's going to be on a transition on the way out. So you're going to be on the backside of a full moon coming up this week. So those are something you're going to have to take in consideration. So your bite is going to be pretty much early or around the minor time frame. And then if you're still on the water during the major, whenever that's going to be on that particular day, is you really need to pay attention to what that is and what your water levels are doing, because they're starting to fluctuate pretty good. This big moon sucked a lot of water out of here, and it's going to push back a little bit, draw a little back. So it's stuff to take in consideration when you're looking for what area that you want to fish. Up in here, these mouths have been good. The drains to the mouths have been good. There's been trout in there. There's been redfish and scattered flounder have been in there. You get back in that Cottonwood back lake and start wading some of those areas back there. Just be careful. There's, it gets kind of soupy in some areas. Lots of scattered shell pads that are back in there if you're not aware of that. So just take caution when you run your boat back in there. If you're going to get on your trolling motor or whatever, and you're exploring the area and you're going to jump out, it's going to be pretty soft on you. So if you're not really up for that, then don't do it. Just stay in your boat and kind of drift it if you can, or work your trolling motor if you can, depending on what you got going on. But there are fish that are back in these areas. It's starting to show up really good. Again, the hard-packed sand is starting to show stuff. There's the edges off of those. The scattered shell, those fish are starting to show up in these areas as we start to transition toward our summer months, which are not too terribly far away. The burner shads during the full moon phase have been the most productive for me. Purple rain, chicken of the sea, supernatural, twisted tea, those four specifically have been very productive the last few days for me during this big moon phase. Early morning, late evening, those are your two main time frames that you're really going to want to look for your fish. Again, you can find them during the middle of the day. It's just going to be a grind on you when you start hitting these areas. These fish have kind of started falling off into these guts as this middays, that water has warmed up. It's gotten into the 80s. If you got some flow, we've had some wind pushing, got our tidal flow that's been sucking water in, pushing water out. Be in areas where you can get that flow to come around there, get that current. Panther Lake back in there has been really good along the edges on either side, just depending on what wind that you have that really can work that for you. And then on the outside around the shell, like we say, we've been picking up trout out there as well, but they haven't all been in the new slot size, the 17 to 23, a lot of unders, 13, 14s, 15s, a few 16s. Then we'll have a few scattered that are in the new slot. So all that considered, it's been productive. You just have to wade through some fish to find some quality fish if that's what you're looking for specifically in trout. Redfish have been good. They've been scattered. You get down here in Cedar Lake and work all those edges around there. Topwater bait's been okay, or the topwater bite has been okay and been great. Double D, Miradines or the soft dines have been pretty good. But the most productive bait this past few days, past week, has been the burner shads by Down South in the four colors that I mentioned earlier. You probably could get a bone diamond and stick it in there as well, just kind of depending on what your water clarity is and what it does. But using those paying attention to what that major and minor is, and make sure you just get yourself in protected shorelines with the winds that we've had. They're starting to kick up, and they slow down, kick up, and slow down. So just all part of it, fishing in South Texas. Just remember those things and continue to look for your bait. Bait migration is in full swing, if not kind of starting to taper a little bit. There's a ton of bait that's in these systems now, so you're going to have to contend with that as well. So really work those baits, really put a lot of things in your favor, and you'll locate your fish. Up here in Long Reef Bend, coming off the Mott, man, get on the inside of the Mott and work all up and down this hard shell, this hard packed sand. There's trout that are starting to show up on these particular kinds of structure in this kind of area, with our water temps that are starting out in the upper 70s, climbing into the 80s, low 80s, depending on how much sunshine they get. But all these areas along here, along the shell, hard packed sand. All this area through here, you got some scattered grass. Been seeing a bunch of porpoise that are starting to work these shorelines. They're looking for these trout as well, and you're going to catch a lot of trout off these areas. There's a bunch of them that are in that 14, 15, 16-inch mark. Like I say, you're going to have to catch a few of those to find you a 17 and a half, maybe 18, maybe a stick of 19 or 20 if you're lucky enough. But some of these, they're there. They're in there. You're just going to have to catch a few to keep what you want. In the Mott, up and down that shoreline there, that's got that shell bed, and the shell reef that's out there. It's been a little productive. It hasn't been super productive, but that's going to continue to produce fish. There's just so much bait that's working in here. The fish are going to be there. They're going to show up. It's just a timing thing. If you happen to be in this particular area on your day that you get to fish, this be one of the areas that you'd want to start. Long Reef Bend, get on the backside here. You've got all those drains that dump out into it. Depending on what your tide is, you may have to be up close. If you've got a higher tide, pay attention to that. And see where your water levels are to see if you want to throw a topwater bait, or if you can throw your plastics up in those areas against that shoreline. And if you got that tide that's falling out, there's a little sandbar that's a little further out, maybe 150 yards out from that shoreline. Then it starts to taper off out into the bay there. You want to get out there and get to that, waist deep, thigh deep, belly deep water, and see if those fish are hanging out in those areas there. But if there's so much bait that's cruising in and out of that, that's not the issue. You're just going to have to find you an area that these fish are going to be active enough to really want to eat stuff. So with the big moon in place for this particular report, it's something you have to consider. You have to put that in your game plan in order for you to be successful on these particular time frames. Your minor's going to be early, and that's going to migrate back an hour each day. So just pay attention to when that is, and those are going to be your target time frames. If you don't want to fish the middays, that's fine. Wait till the late evening if you have that opportunity to do that, and your bite will kick back in. But again, these minor time frames are going to change daily, so there's something you have to take in consideration. You must keep up with that and see when it's going on if you're going to use that as part of your arsenal, which I would recommend that you do because it's very productive. Again, the down south burner shads have been money all week long in these areas as well. Again, the chicken of the sea, supernatural, twisted tea, purple rain, have all those four specific colors have been the most productive. So using those, and you can then, if you see that your bite is maybe just a tad bit not as aggressive, okay, maybe bump it just a little bit. Go up to the regular size. I wouldn't throw the supermodel just yet. Those days are coming. Man, if you want to chunk it, you can, but the most productive have been the burner shads, and then we're going up to the regular size, the original down south. The back lake there at Sherman's off of Jaybird Point, Jaybird Reef as well. There's been a few fish that we've been scattered off it, but it hasn't been a consistent number. It's just maybe a hit or miss type of thing. But these back lakes there at Jaybird and down in Sherman's, in this area down here on the backside of Vincent Slough, have been productive in there. You're going to have to get your boat up in there. If you've got a skinny water boat that you can run that thing up in there and pay attention what your wind is doing, which way you have to approach it from, because there's two access points. You can come in from the northeast end, or you can come from the south end of it. But either way, approach that. Work that grass out there. If you need to put a weedless setup for your plastic on there, then do it. If you can't keep that bait out of that grass line, because it's going to be pretty skinny there depending on what the tide levels are. But continue to work all that. Continue to incorporate that major and minor in there. Use those particular colors in that size frame, and you'll locate fish. Newcomb Point, Newcomb shoreline here. Another area that fish are starting to show up in. This whole area out here, you got nice hard packed sands. You got a lot of different levels on the bottom down there. It's up and down, hill and dale. A lot of undulation that's in there. These fish are, some of them are holding close to the shoreline. Some of them are hanging out off a little bit deeper edge, the deeper grass that's scattered all out there. Got a decent amount of bait that's working this shoreline. So these fish are kind of fluctuating up and down there. So if you're looking for redfish in this particular area, I would work the shoreline, maybe 50 yards out or 50 yards out and back in to that area. Your trout are going to be a little bit further out, scattered. They've been up and down this area, all the way up here to the point on the backside to get into Newcomb Bend in the little corner down in here. Great little protected area when you got a pretty stout southeast breeze that's humming across there, across Arandis Bay. All that shoreline there on the Lamar Peninsula takes care of that for you, so you can fish this backside of Newcomb and get into Newcomb Bend and fish the shoreline. Been redfish that have been scattered back here in the corner on this back shoreline here. There've been some scattered trout in there. Even pulled out a bonus flounder every once in a while in there. Not too many, but every so often we'll pull one out of there. Again, the main colors that's been through here has been the Purple Rain, Twisted Tea, the Supernatural. Those colors in here have been just really, really good. Every so often we'll put the original size Twisted Tea and throw it as well as you're working down this back shoreline. You got a little shell pad that's down on the back end of this thing. Redfish like to kind of hang out around that kind of stuff. If you like throwing a topwater, get you a topwater bait. I like the Spook Juniors. My favorite ones to throw, either the black and chrome or the baby trout looking one. As long as it's got some type of white, gray belly on it, that's what you really want to be there, because that's fish are going to attack that from the backside like that. The Double D has been okay. It's been somewhat productive. You can throw that if you like that, or if you're in that little bit, waist deep water. Throw that Double D and really kind of work that and just kind of let that thing float around in there for you and give it a little rip here and there, bang it down. Find those areas around that shell as you work back toward Holiday Beach area. But all these areas in here, they're holding some decent fish. Again, a lot of scattered smaller trout that are in here. You got a few scattered lower to mid-slot redfish that are in and out of here. So just pick you a day that's got a favorable minor for you or a favorable major for you in here. Again, we're on the big moon sliding down on the back side of it, so it's going to be one of those things that you have to really pay attention to if this is an area that you wish to fish. It's been a little bit more productive on the outside, on the bay side, on the Copano Bay side for your trout. A little bit more productive for redfish on the inside, on the Newcomb Bend side. So just kind of work both areas if you have that opportunity to. Bait fish galore, all in these areas here. Tons of bait fish. The predators are going to be there. Your trout, your redfish, flounder, they're going to be in there. You just got to spend the time and work. Be patient. The bites around the big moon is the toughest, so you really got to kind of really take your time with this thing in here and work these baits in and out of here. But all that said, just get you a game plan together. Start out with your smaller baits, and if you need to migrate to the little bit bigger baits, then do so. Just kind of play with it. But the smaller baits, the down south burner shads, have been the most productive for us this week. So incorporate those into your day. Incorporate that majors and minors. Locate your bait and go to work.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.